Thank you for joining tonight. My name is Angela Rupert, and I am the Principal Consultant of Learning Rubrics. Learning Rubrics is a startup in the AI education space. I've been a learning and development consultant for 14 years, and I have a master's degree in learning technologies with a primary focus on digital learning initiatives. Tonight, we are joined by TAI Lambo. TAI Lambo assists organizations build robust information security programs and is an AI expert in AI best practices. TAI has held executive leadership roles for the City of Atlanta, Harlan Clark, as well as the Atlanta Federal Reserve Bank. He is going to discuss how systematically managing risks through programs such as HISPI is the key to leveraging AI in a balanced way. So, AI, thank you so much. I'm sorry. Hi, thank you so much for joining tonight.
You're pretty close. Thank you so much, Angie, for having me. I always, have jokingly say I always knew my intelligence was artificial, even before AI became a big thing. So you're pretty close. So fun fact, I've been using AI for probably the longest time I can think of. Not IBM Watson, but several algorithms when I used to run honeypots, about, almost 3 decades ago. So so AI is not new, but obviously it's become mainstream and it's become top of mind for obvious reasons. Thanks to ChatGPT or OpenAI. The owners of or developers of ChatGPT. So Angie, thanks again for having me, and obviously thank you for all the great work you do. So I'm going to really, for the sake of time, I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing a deep dive into everything we do at HISPI. But I just like to showcase some of the great work that we do not only in the area of cybersecurity, but in the area of artificial intelligence from a governance, risk management, and trustworthiness standpoint. So, we like to solve big problems. HISPI, the Holistic Information Security Practitioner Institute, I know mouthful, has been around for almost 2 decades. We started here in Atlanta, Georgia. We actually held our first training class at Georgia Tech. They actually hosted a class we did in 2005. And over a period of about almost 20 years, we trained security leaders at least 60, maybe 70% of the Fortune 500. But about 7 years ago, we started focusing on diversity. We have this program called the Cyber Risk Outreach, where we're focusing on strengthening the people aspect of cybersecurity. So we believe cybersecurity is about people, process, technology, and data, because data is now everywhere. But we feel like as a community, we need to be as diverse in terms of perspectives, opinion, as the bad actors, right? So the Cyber Risk Initiative, if you want to learn more, just go to thecyberrisk.com. That's one of the problems we've been trying to solve. So last year, with OpenAI launching ChatGPT, we actually came up with Project Cerebellum. So if you go to projectcerebellum.com, you're going to learn a bit about history of how the whole concept started. But our impact statement is we believe AI should cause no harm, but it should enhance the quality of human life. So that's pretty much our impact statement. The jury is still out on whether that's going to be true in another 5 or 10 years. But our vision and mission is we believe in serving safe and secure and trustworthy AI. So safe, secure, trustworthy AI. And the way we accomplish that vision is through our mission, which is to be the brains behind the promotion and harmonization of best practices, standards, and frameworks for AI and related technologies. So if you look at the diagram to your right-hand side, which is also on our website, We created a trusted AI model within 3 months of launching this think tank in April. So we have CISOs, we have CIOs, chief information security officers, and in many cases, the boss, who is the CIO, represented on the think tank. And we also have engineers and developers. So we have a very diverse board. But we decided we needed to provide some content, and everything we do is all open source, because it's crowdsourced. And so we saw a need to create a trusted AI model, which a friend of mine actually convinced me the best acronym was TAI, which is obviously related to my name. And so the governance piece, we're leveraging the ISO standard around AI governance. And then the risk management piece, we're referencing 2 ISO standards as well as the NIST AI risk management framework. So we believe trust is at the heart of AI, trustworthy or trusted AI. So that's pretty much kind of a philosophy, but also embodied in our vision and our mission statement for the think tank. All right, so we've seen a number of AI-related risks actually surface in the past year, especially in the past year. And I think we'd be remiss if we did not really try to help quantify, not only quantify the risk, but also help to prioritize the risk. Because, the thing with AI is it has some amazing applications. It has some huge opportunities to do good. But if we're not careful, it also has some really, really good opportunities for the bad actors, the bad folks, not bad guys. We always used to say bad guys, and then we realize, guys are not the only ones that could be bad, right? We have bad actors in every gender. So it allows bad actors to really do bad things if we allow them to, right? So obviously our goal is to help provide guardrails around safe, secure, trustworthy AI. So as you can see from this example, there are various risks associated with AI. This particular example actually happened last year, just a little bit under a year ago. So the Australian Research Council issued an RFP, and they started receiving responses to the RFP, and they realized a lot of the responses were generated using ChatGPT. So they literally had to send out a notice to the respondents saying, stop using ChatGPT because that may constitute a breach of confidentiality, because they were able to see that obviously, the RFP was supposed to be confidential, but the folks were using ChatGPT, which meant they were posting content from the RFP into ChatGPT. So, this is a nuisance. No lives were lost, nobody was harmed. But we've seen incidents where folks have actually been harmed, and I'm going to share some of those incidents with you. And so one of the things we're actually doing is saying, okay, we have a lot of intelligence, we have a lot of data we're gathering. How do we actually make this, how do we help folks to apply this data to make sure that they're doing AI safely, securely, and in a trustworthy way? So there are 12 incidents that we like to showcase, all happened in the past year or two. Some of them are just annoying, just nuisance like the Australian Research Council, but you have some that have very devastating effect, right? So what we did is we started with this massive spreadsheet called the Trusted AI model, taking the NIST AI risk management framework, mapping that across 20 plus other elements. Some of them are standard, some of them are other frameworks, people, process, technology, data, AI risk management principles or AI principles, I just I just accidentally clicked a link, so it just popped up the link. So I'm like, what happened? So apologies for that. So what we decided to do was to actually figure out a way to showcase how these controls could be operationalized in the real world to prevent these types of incidents, right? So that's really the goal. And I'm going to be giving you not a full deep dive, at a very high level, how we came across these 20 controls. But before I do that, I want to also share with you that there are 72 controls within the NIST AI risk management framework. Right now, we can only hope that folks would pay attention to the 20 that actually map to real world incidents. So these are 20 of those 72 that could have prevented this AI incidents that we have on this slide that you're looking at. So, all right, so next slide. Pretty much the high level of the AI risk management framework is we have 4 domains. NIST calls those functions. We call them domains. So govern, map, measure, manage. And so the trusted AI model at its core, it's based on these 4 domains and then the 72, what NIST calls subcategories, but we call them controls, right? So what we've done is we've mapped this to other frameworks and other standards. So again, going back to our vision and mission statement, vision is safe, secure, trustworthy AI, to serve that to our community. But to also, the mission is to harmonize and promote existing frameworks. So, while in a perfect world, everybody would implement NIST, AI risk management framework, but we don't live in a perfect world. So we realize there are other frameworks and other standards. So our first attempt is to show how NIST relates to all these other frameworks and all these AI principles, right? Of responsible AI. So that's what I'm going to be showing you in the next few slides. But just remember, it's the 4 domains are govern, map, measure, and manage. All right. So next slide would be pretty much number 1 on the list is the one that we saw actually created some issues. So this actually impacted Twitter as well as Microsoft. So Microsoft created an AI chatbot called TAI. Full disclaimer, nothing to do with me, even though it has 3 of the letters in my name. But this chatbot literally, the headline news from Business Insider was that Twitter taught that chatbot to be racist in less than a day. I don't think Twitter intended that. I'm hoping not. But it's the algorithm, it's the data, garbage in, garbage out. So obviously somebody probably put some data in there that wasn't supposed to be in there. And this chatbot started using racial slurs, right? And it was also defending, white supremacist propaganda and calling for a genocide. So you're thinking about that and you're like, who's going to buy into that? Like, who's going to believe that? Unfortunately, we live in a world where I can literally tell you that in some parts of the world, without even this sort of what I call mass media, like you heard about the Rwanda genocide. So one of my clients is the United Nations. And so I have a little bit of knowledge of what happened back then. And it was just purely radio communication. The propaganda happened through radio, like one tribe were describing the other tribe as cockroaches and let's kill all the cockroaches. And suddenly within, I think, a couple of months, 1 million people were slaughtered, right? Neighbors were literally killing neighbors, right? So I'm not saying that could happen in the Western world or in the developed world, but, these things do have an impact. So Microsoft had to literally shut down this chatbot for that reason. So if you go back to the controls, accountability is one of the biggest things. Also understanding the risk are associated with that kind of technology and making sure users actually get the right training around that to be able to mitigate the risk. My job ultimately as a security or cybersecurity executive is to help identify risk, quantify the risk, and help prioritize in terms of how you mitigate the risk. And this is constantly what I do with my clients, even as a virtual CISO, and that's what I've done as an enterprise CISO. So whether I'm reporting to a CIO, a mayor, a CEO, it's the same concept. You're trying to educate, right? So training, accountability, those are the key words I would say within this control. All right, so let's move on to the second one in the list. And I may not have enough time to kind of do a deep dive of everyone, but I think that one is one that I particularly find very interesting. So this second one it actually relates to a lawyer that cited ChatGPT. So it was a fake ChatGPT generated case. So the lawyer was trying to prove a case in court, and they actually referenced data from ChatGPT, which is great, but the data was completely made up, right? And this happened last year, in May last year, or maybe early last year, but it was reported by technext24.com in May last year. And they actually found, so it was a lawyer, the lawyer represented the plaintiff, and this was Mada versus Avanka, sorry. Basically utilized ChatGPT. The judge actually accepted the argument, and then the judge found out that the case law decided, which the judge, ruled in the favor of the plaintiff, was actually made up. So the judge was furious and literally just reversed their decision because of that. Eventually, the lawyer themselves got disbarred. So why does this, or how does this control allow you to mitigate that risk of infringement, whether it's third-party intellectual property or other rights? And other rights would be like, find out the source of truth, right? If you're going to quote any particular data, you don't have to be a lawyer. Actually make sure that what you're quoting is factual, right? So, I mean, that may not be a violation of intellectual property, but it's violating the rights of the like, I don't know what they call the opposite of the plaintiff, I guess the other party, right? So you have to be aware of these things. So how can that could have been mitigated? Policies and procedures around AI risks, especially as it relates to third-party information and third-party data, could have prevented or at least mitigated, reduced the probability of something like that happening. All right, so I'm going to move to the next one, which is number 3. Again, we're probably not going to have enough time to deep dive into every single one. So number 3 is interesting because that one's 3 people actually ended up almost going to jail. So 3 men's lives, or 3 men, were wrongfully arrested because an AI system flagged them as committing a crime. So luckily they detected it in time before they were actually tried, and obviously that the charges were dropped. Right. But just imagine if these 3 men ended up in jail. And especially in the, post, George Floyd, and everything going on around, racial challenges. I mean, just imagine if they found out maybe 10 years later or 20 years later that they were wrongfully accused because of an AI flag. So this could actually have not only real world implications, but lives could be destroyed in the process. So the control here is making sure that anytime you're testing any or implementing AI system, you got to consider the diversity of the demographic, or you want to make sure that the demographic is diverse so that those types of implicit biases are not present. So that's an actual control within the NIST AI risk management framework. So I think that's another good one, in my opinion. All right, so number 4, this one actually relates to a class action lawsuit that OpenAI is facing. Actually, it started, I think it was reported June last year, and it was around privacy. So think about AI. What makes AI unique is that, not TAI unique, but AI, it's that it really takes data and it consumes data and it makes sense of the data in ways that, I mean, the human brain is extremely powerful, but I don't think we have the ability to be able to output the data, even though our brains have massive capacity. I'm not a neurologist or a brain scientist, but our brains, my understanding is our brains we're not even tapping into a small percentage of our brain function, right? But even if we're able to do that, I don't think we're going to be able to produce the output we're not going to be able to speak fast enough. Even if we're able to tap into 100% of our brain capacity, AI does that really quickly. But if the data is bad, or if the data includes personally identifiable information that is not supposed to be in the public domain, if let's say I go into ChatGPT and say, hey, tell me about Angie, and ChatGPT starts saying, yeah, Angie lives at, this address, and this is her social security number and her medical records, that would be illegal, first of all, because that would violate so many privacy laws. But what if somebody had put in that data into ChatGPT and ChatGPT didn't have the guardrails to say, oh, you're not supposed to publish that data? We don't know how much data they have, right? They pretty much scrape the internet, right? And apparently some AI products, maybe not ChatGPT, not only use the open web, but they also use the dark web as well. Like, I don't even know what's out there for me in the dark web, right? Because my data has been hacked in so many places, right? And a lot of those places, a lot of the bad actors are actually selling those pieces of data. So it could be the Equifax breach, it could be OPM, it could be anyone, just name anyone that has been a victim, right? So imagine the amount of data that OpenAI solution has access to. So privacy needs to be protected. So that's actually one of the NIST AI risk management framework controls. So respecting the privacy of its users, and understanding, making sure relevant AI actors, understand the privacy, as well as when making decisions, taking social technical implications into account to address the AI risk. So that's the fourth one. Obviously, the list goes on, so I'm going to maybe skip some and just kind of give you, this one relates to the lawyer case that I mentioned, but it's specifically about making sure that you map your technology to legal risks around those types of risks, like the one related to the lawyer that got disbarred because they used ChatGPT, and obviously the case they used was just completely made up case. It wasn't a real world case. AI does hallucinate, right? But the data AI uses sometimes could be wrong, right? So the next one, which is a unique one, relates to where an AI-generated Seinfeld show was banned on Twitch after transphobic stand-up bits. I don't know what that means, but I guess it's a stand-up something. But it was basically used. It was AI-generated content, and Vice.com actually reported this. And so the Twitch channel was called Nothing Forever, and they were suspended because it violated Twitch terms of service. If you're familiar with Twitch, the way it works, just like Twitter, they have their own terms of service. So the risk here is if you don't scrutinize your AI solution, things could go wrong. So the control here is the likelihood and magnitude of each identified impact needs to be based on expected use, past uses of the AI system. And so you need to understand the context, you need to understand other incidents, and you need to have like a feedback loop with not only your developers, but also your AI actors or stakeholders, that are involved in that AI system. So I think we probably would only have time for maybe half of them. This next one actually does have real world, I would say, safety issues or human rights could be violated. So an example of where this one wasn't implemented was a case that was reported by Human Rights Watch. So in Myanmar, or Myanmar, I think is the way it's pronounced, Myanmar, facial recognition systems were being used to monitor folks they have a safe city program. So they began to establish hundreds of surveillance cameras. So if you've ever been to Atlanta, we have cameras pretty much everywhere. I live in 2 surveillance Big brother cities. London, I lived in London for 10 years, and I think there's like a camera to like, I think it's like 3 cameras to every citizen, something like that in London. And if you know how populated London is, I mean, that's a lot of cameras, both in public hands and in private hands. Atlanta is kind of close to that, as a city, maybe not quite that high, but pretty close. So in Miramar, they were trying hundreds of surveillance cameras to recognize like plate numbers, and license plates and facial recognition using AI to scan faces and license plates. Unfortunately, the government is not like the most transparent and the most democratic. So governments can actually use these types of technologies not only for mass surveillance, but they could also intrude on people's privacy. So this particular control talks about when you're doing evaluation of AI tools or platforms, you need to consider human subjects, and you need to think about what requirements, including protections for those human subjects, so human rights, privacy, etc. And then obviously the technology has to make sure that the population or the test data you're using has to be representative of the population that you're going to be using that technology for. So maybe in their case, they don't have a need for a lot of diversity, of people, but certainly in the United States, we do. All right, so number 8, and I think I'll get to number 10, and then we can probably, call it a day or night. So number 8, this one has to do with, there was actually this was reported by the AP News, the Associated Press, where a couple, they're called the Hackneys, faced a nationwide shortage of formula, so baby formula, or I guess baby food for their kids. And so they tried a different brand, and the baby didn't like it, but the baby actually grew lethargic to that brand, and they ended up having to take their baby to the emergency room. This was reported by the AP, I believe last year, in the past 2 years, but I believe last year. And when they got to the emergency room, they obviously do screening, right? Especially if parents show up with their kid, right? A baby. And it flagged them as some sort of parental negligence. Yeah, so their baby was actually taken away from them. Yes, temporarily, thankfully, because of an AI-generated flag. So when you're deploying systems, you have to think about, is the system valid? Is the output valid? It's garbage in, garbage out. But is it reliable? You're going to purely base a life and death decision like that, which for the parents could be devastating on what an AI system thinks, right? They obviously didn't harm the child, but there's something in maybe the information they provided in the emergency room that made the hospital suspicious, and well, maybe not the hospital, the AI system flagged them as parents that were negligent, right? So unfortunately it happened, but fortunately the hospital rectified it before they were sent to jail, or they were permanently separated from their baby. So AI can be fallible, and when the information it gives isn't fact-checked, those acting on it could actually cause harm. So that's the summary that's the risk. And this control would actually help you mitigate that risk. All right, I think we have 2 more to go out of the top 20. So this one specifically relates to the Microsoft AI chatbot. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but this particular control is about how you measure risks. The initial one was how you govern to reduce risk, but this is actually a control that talks about how you measure, how you come up with like safety metrics around, reliability, robustness, and then monitoring that system for anomalies and failures so that you can detect when something's gone wrong. In Microsoft and Twitter's case, I think they detected it within a few days, right? So thankfully that things didn't go horribly wrong. All right, so the last one, I think we have enough time to share out of the top 20 would be number 10, which actually is also related to the Seinfeld AI-generated Seinfeld show that was transphobic. So yeah, this one would be to specifically measuring those types of risks in your AI model or system. So I think that's a good snapshot of the 10 of the 20. I wish we had a bit more time to cover all the 20, but I'm sure you probably get the gist. And so I would highly encourage everyone that listens to this video to just visit our website, projectcerebellum.com. You could also feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I've provided my contact details in the final slide, tlambo@hispi.org. So when you go to projectcerebellum.com, there's a download page. You can download the Trusted AI model. I think it was a spreadsheet. I don't know if I actually ended up giving you a visual of the spreadsheet, but that's what you're going to end up seeing when you do the download. So there are 72 rows, excluding the header and the heading row. And then there are about 26, 27, maybe even more columns. So from things like the ISO frameworks, people, process, data, technology, the top 20 controls, the ones that I've showcased in this PowerPoint, you'll be able to sort it by those controls. One of the things we're actually also open to is having folks do like a voluntary assessment based on their own particular use case. So if you're a consultant, if you're, work for an enterprise, being able to actually go out. I just realized I was sharing the wrong screen, so you're not able to see the spreadsheet. So, but it's a bit of an eye chart, because I'm sharing it now on a smaller screen. So, so apologies for that. I was describing the 72 rows and the 20 plus columns. So that's the visual for that, but I know it's a bit of an eye chart. But you'll be able to download that from projectcerebellum.com download link. Also feel free to, if you want to learn more about what I do, tailambo.com is the website. But yeah, thank you, Angie, for the opportunity to share this platform with you. Thanks for sharing your platform with me, and really, really looking forward to hearing from your audience, and obviously staying engaged as we try and make AI safe, secure, and trustworthy. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I'm sure everybody is really going to be looking forward to this presentation tomorrow. So you have a good night, and we'll be in touch later. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Angie. Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.